Thanks, Professor. I'm glad to be here today. So I'm Wendy Felton, the Social Media Manager at the Lubin School of Business, and we're going to talk about social media for startups. It's a really big topic. There's a million things we could talk about today. So what I've prepared is sort of a broad, shallow overview just to give you the big picture, and we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers at the end if you want to dig a little deeper. Like I said a few minutes ago, I come to social media from a communications and marketing background. I'm not a business person. So I'd love to hear, you can ask questions, we can talk afterward, we can talk next week about what you need from social media, what you'd like to know, and hopefully some of my strategies and some of what I've pointed out today will be helpful to you as you launch your businesses. So first of all, I don't want to take your temperature here and talk about social media in general. How many of you already use social media, any kind, on a daily basis? That's everyone, right? So you're all on Facebook, I imagine, yes? How many of you use Twitter? Okay, just a few. What about LinkedIn? All right, everyone. Well, almost everyone. Anyone use anything else? Are you on Instagram? Anyone? Pinterest? Okay, so notice some of you are on every site. That's like me too, I'm on everything. The good news is that using social media for startups is a lot like the social media you're already doing. Some of the sites are different, but a lot of the same strategies and techniques are going to apply. The things that get you retweets and replies on your personal Twitter account are some of the same kinds of things that are going to get you responses on your business Twitter account. So if you're already on social media, you're off to a good start. Our key sites for using social media, I always focus on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. That's because, as we just saw with our survey here, those are the most popular sites. Those are the ones most frequently used, and they're also considered highly authoritative by things like Google, right? If you Google your name, what are you going to come up with? Chances are it's going to be your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your Twitter profile. My first result is my Twitter profile. So those are the most important sites to focus on. Now, before there was social media, there was this. Does anyone know who this is? Exactly. That's Steve Jobs in 1976, before you were all born, I'm sure. This is him in front of the garage where he and Steve Wozniak built the first Apple computer. Now, funny thing that a lot of businesses, before there was social media, had to start in garages, right? You got to start somewhere. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos started Amazon in his house. Google and HP were also started in people's houses. So even though they started a while ago, before there was social media, they have a lot in common with you. They still had to do things all businesses have to do. They had to find investors, hire employees, they had to market themselves. So they managed to do this without social media, but you have social media. That's a big advantage. All right? You might not be Steve Jobs, you might not be a genius like he was, but social media gives you a leg up. And this is your leg up with social media, arithmetic. Not to get political here, but I enjoy that photograph. So we're just going to do the math here, the simple math of social media. On any given day, 66% of adults who use the internet go on a social media site. Now that's 66%. You've got 12% on Pinterest, 12% on Instagram, 5% on Tumblr. If you're on Tumblr, you know that skews a little bit younger, so that might be a good target for you based on some of your products. 2/3 of that 66% are on Facebook, so big, important platform there. 20% on LinkedIn, and 16% on Twitter. So social media, it's a good place to be. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of eyeballs looking for content. The other thing about social media is because of all those people, it really expands your reach. Now think about if you were starting a business in your garage before there was social media, and you're like, oh, I need to find an investor. So what would you do? How would you go about doing that? Right, you'd start with your family or your community. You'd probably pick up the phone and you'd be like, hey Dad, I need this kind of person with this skill. Do you know anyone? And he would say, no, but call my friend Joe. And you'd call Joe, and Joe would tell you to call Steve, who'd tell you to call Billy, so on and so forth. It's a little bit difficult. Social media can really concentrate your network. And this is just an example from my LinkedIn account. So I have 133 connections on LinkedIn. It's a pretty average number. But if you look here, that connects me to more than 3.5 million people. Okay, so when you consider second degree and third degree connections, that's a lot of people. There's no way I could ever meet 3.5 million people. And that means that I have more than 3.5 million potential customers. So just through LinkedIn, I can connect to 3.5 million. And then you consider that 3.5 million have offline connections as well. So social media is really a good concentration of all those people you would want to reach when starting a business. Social media also gives you accountability, and this is why when you're launching a business, it's really important to get established online and have a professional presence. So think about, say you want to buy, I don't know, some kind of, you want to buy a computer cable. You're like, oh, this Apple cable's too expensive, and you're Googling for your cable, and you find this website that has a great price and free shipping, but you've never heard of them. Well, if you're me, now before you order, what am I going to do? I'm going to open another tab, and I'm going to Google the name of that website and scam or rip off and see if anything comes up. I want to see if they're legitimate. Think about Yelp. When do you use Yelp?
For restaurants?
Right. Do you use it for restaurants you've been to a million times? No. You're going to a new restaurant, something that just opened in the neighborhood, none of your friends have been there. You look to the internet for legitimacy. You want to see if this is a real thing. You depend on other people to tell you this, but you also depend on the business itself to have a presence on these sites. Again, with Facebook, it's a good way to look up people. Somebody wants to introduce you to their friend. Oh, my friend's so cute, you should meet this person. Well, Facebook's a good way to start, right? And it builds trust, because you can, with a lot of social media sites, you can immediately see your connections. Now, I've just taken a couple of random people from my Facebook account that I'm friends with. So you see Jason here, I have 36 mutual friends. With Danilo, I have 3 mutual friends. If I had a serious thing going on, like a business, I want to start a business and reach out to people, who am I going to start with?
Jason.
Why do I trust Jason more? Right? We have the same people. Because we share a network, I perceive him as more reliable to me, right? Because you think, well, if Jason invests money and then I abscond with the money and don't use it for my business, Jason has 36 ways to track me down. So you figure that network makes you a little bit more accountable and worthwhile, trustworthy. At the end of the day, you might be thinking, well, what does this really matter? If I have a good product, the product's going to sell anyway. That might be true. It might not be. Are you going to take the chance? Social media can really help you build a bigger network. It can help you reach out to your existing network and reach more people that are already in your network. It's a really good tool for that. It's a really good way to build up your reputation as a company. So, all right, you're convinced. Let's do social media for our company. What's our company? I need an idea. What should I make? I don't know. Maybe I should ask some people. Social media is really good for that. Social media is a great place for you to bounce ideas off people. I figure that a lot of your Facebook friends are probably similar to you. Maybe they have similar interests, similar needs in a product. So they might be interested in the same kinds of things you want to create, right? Same kind of services. It's a good place to find trusted beta testers. A lot of companies now reach out to their Facebook fans or their Twitter followers to try out new things. And it's just a good place you can offer your suggestions for existing businesses that you patronize, or to get suggestions for yourself. A few weeks ago, I was looking for somebody to redesign the logo on my blog. So I tweeted, and I got 20 responses of people recommending other people, or graphic designers just coming to me directly. So when you have a network already in place, you all of a sudden have all these people who are willing to help you out with things. Excuse me. You don't have to be a small business owner to turn to your network. Big companies do this. This is a really successful, proven way to get direct feedback from your customers. So you've probably heard of Lay's Potato Chips is doing this contest where you invent a new flavor. Yeah, you've seen it all over Facebook with some really gross sounding stuff. But so they're having a contest. They're narrowing it down to finalists. What information do you think Lay's got from this contest? Right, they get some demographic information. What else? I think they learned what kinds of products their customers wanted, Then they have that they can cross-reference with their demographic data, right? They go, well, people in the South want this, honey barbecue smoked rib flavor, whereas in New York, the churro flavor is very popular. That's good information to have when you're trying to sell potato chips. Doubletree by Hilton Hotels started a hashtag campaign on Twitter, hashtag little things. And they encouraged their guests and their customers to tweet, what little things make your hotel stay more enjoyable? So they were again able to collect data directly from their customers in a non-intrusive way, kind of fun. You tweet that and Doubletree retweets you and you're like, wow, somebody's paying attention to me, the consumer. It's a great thing. This is a proven technique. Now you can do it too, even if you're not Lay's or any kind of mega corporation. So these are just a couple of examples. I read a site called Metafilter. It has a section called Ask Metafilter, where people just post all kinds of questions. And a couple of days ago, somebody posted a question about starting a business. They want to know, if you're an academic, would you pay someone to keep your files for applications? And how much would you pay? So they got 18 answers. You might not, it's fairly anonymous. Everyone has a username on that site. So you don't know whose information you're getting, but that's still good feedback, right? 18 answers from people. I posted this on Facebook. I'm not actually starting a business, but you can post on Facebook, like we discussed, to ask your friends. And Quora. Quora is a fantastic site, and I hope you all have accounts on Quora. It is a question and answer site. It is very heavily skewed towards startups, entrepreneurship, businesses, and it has everything from, what does it feel like to get your Series B funding, to how do you lay off your whole staff, how do I code this particular thing, I'm looking for a PHP developer, how should I hire them, blah, 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 blah. Everything. It's amazing. It's all real names. So not only do you know whose words you're reading, you can also connect with some really high-powered people. One thing that I would suggest if you are going to start even casually asking questions on social media is you want to include your theoretical price tag for this. That's a really important piece of information in determining whether people are interested. So think about, my sample here, a website that helps you track your school assignments. And I say the subscription fee would be $5 a month. So you think, $5 a month, that's not very much money. That's one trip to Starbucks, no big deal, fine. What if I'd said the subscription fee is $30 a month? How do you think that's going to change my responses? It is, right? Right? People are going to be less interested. They don't want to pay as much. So it's a good way, it's a really important thing because setting the price of your product is going to go some way in determining the success of it. So you might as well get feedback on that too, just the perceived value of it in the market. So, all right, you've pulled all your friends, you've gone on Quora, you've read everything, you've got your product, you're ready to go. You need some money. So social media is a really good place. There's some ways to find money there, whether you just need to build your prototype, whether you want to launch your product, you need funding to launch your company. It's called crowdfunding. It's basically reaching out to the internet at large and asking them to fund your business. But before you jump into crowdfunding, and we'll talk in a moment about all the different ways you can do crowdfunding, a few things that you want to think about. First of all, is your project interesting to anyone else? Chances are, if you find a product useful, someone else will, but you never know. You've got to sell this. This has got to be fun and exciting, and you need to be able to identify a customer base. If you're inventing a product and you go, oh, well, people just like me are going to like this. Well, who are people just like you? Let's talk age, gender, geographic location, right? These are all things you need to be able to quantify to figure out who you're going to target and whether this is an audience even worth targeting. Are they even online? If you're trying to sell a product to 75-year-olds in rural America, maybe they're not going to buy from you online. Maybe crowdfunding is not the way to go. Next thing you want to figure out, do you have a large enough network to fund your product? So if you're trying to raise $500 or $1,000, I bet between your Facebook friends, your LinkedIn connection, your family, you could probably come up with that if you really tried, right? If you need $10,000, you're really gonna have to reach beyond that. You probably don't know enough people to raise that kind of money. So that leads us to our next point. Are you willing and able to execute a social media campaign? It's really time consuming. It's a lot of effort. Are you willing to do this to get your money? Finally, is your fundraising goal realistic? A lot of crowdfunding sites require you to set a deadline for your fundraising. So you need to consider the pros and cons of, I want $10,000, but I think I could probably only get $5,000 in my 30-day time limit. Is it worth it? Do you want to investigate other channels of fundraising? These are all things you have to think about. With the two major crowdfunding sites I'll talk about in a moment, one of them penalizes you if you don't reach your funding goal. One doesn't. These are things you need to think about. Okay, so we're going to crowdsource. Woo! We're going to get our money this way. IndieGoGo, Kickstarter. I know Dan is already on Kickstarter. You've got your project ready. Have you guys heard of these sites? Okay. How many of you have donated to a project on either one of these? Just one. I sure have. Both are home to a wide variety of products. They have dedicated technology areas, sports equipment, publishing, film, small businesses. So there's a lot of variety on both those sites. I wish this is how crowdfunding worked. You make a page, you set a goal, and you profit. That's not how it works. Okay. This is how it actually works. So first of all, you need to create a profile explaining your project. You need video. It's incredibly compelling. You need photographs. You want a good sell for your product. Why should your product exist? Why are you the person to make that product? Why should a total stranger give you money to make your product? I mean, that's a big question, isn't it? So you want to think about what your story is. What's your expertise? What's your connection to this? Talk to me about your ski board. It was skiing equipment?
Yeah, it's for skiing and snowboarding. What it is basically, I don't know if you've ever gone.
No.
But in order to get less friction on the bottom of the board, you would go take it to a shop to get it waxed.
Okay.
What we're doing is we're producing ready-made wax that you can just basically stick on and go. So you don't have to spend time at the shop, 20 minutes, half an hour getting it done. It's just easy, cheap, boom, stick, go.
Okay, so why should I give you, as opposed to some other person, money to make this product? What qualifies you to make this?
My partner Sean and I have been skiing and snowboarding for at least 15 years. We have a lot of experience. We know the industry.
Right.
I'm part of the National Ski Patrol, so I have a large network of skiers behind me that I could potentially campaign this to, and who could help me out, who could give me feedback on the product.
That's fantastic. Yeah. That's all good stuff. You really want to think about your story behind the product. It doesn't matter how good your product is if you can't sell it, because ultimately these crowdfunding sites are about you selling and you connecting with total strangers. Next, you're going to set your fundraising goal and a time limit. It's been proven on both IndieGoGo and Kickstarter that shorter time limits work better, so 30 days or less. It's really hard to sustain momentum for longer than that. Obviously, if you're trying to raise $100,000, you're not going to do it in a week, but think about trying to run a campaign for 2 months. It's rough. That's a lot of effort, and people are going to lose interest over time. So you want to give them a deadline. I used to work in fundraising, and when people would be like, "Oh, I need to make my gift so I can get my tax break." When they would do it, like the end of the year. You had to do it by the end of the calendar year. December 30th was a huge day in fundraising because people wait to the last minute. So you got to give them a deadline to get them to act. Once you've got that set up, you're going to campaign among your friends and network to meet your fundraising goal. And this is where that network is, and your authenticity and your authority is really going to come into play here, because you're going to be reaching out to people you've never met. Now, some people are just going to find you on Kickstarter and they're going to be like, "Oh, that's cool," or somebody's going to be searching for wax for their snowboard and find your project and be like, "Yes, I'll donate." Sometimes you're just going to have to reach out to people, whether you know them well or not, as part of the process. You get through all of that, then maybe you'll get to the profit part. So this is a project I came across the other day. It's fully funded. It's for a new kind of video game console. And this is a really well put together video. It's about 3 minutes. I want to show you.
I love video games, but more and more people are moving away from the television. There's a lot of focus today on the mobile and web platform. It's easier to develop games for those platforms than the television. It costs a lot of money, you have to work with established players in the space, and I've been trying to figure out how do we get them back to it. Ouya is a new game console for the television that's built on Android, open source technology. It's an inexpensive game console for gamers. All the games are free to try. Anybody that wants to develop a game for a television, we allow them the ability to do this. I've been a part of the game industry for a really long time. In the early days of gaming, you could take your Apple IIe, write your own programming, and take your game to market.
The console business as it is today is completely closed to the independent developer.
The process overhead for console development is really just too much for us.
There's a lot of hurdles for developers to get games onto the television. Developing is extremely expensive. I love the television and I want those games on the television. We wanted to make a great product. I went out to find the best people that can do it, and that's Yves Behar and the Fuse Project.
Over the years, we've worked on a lot of projects that take a certain technology and make it available to many. I mean, the $100 laptop is one, and the Jambox, for example. We like to use all the different parts of design, fuse them together, whether it's industrial design or user experience.
The most important part of this to us is the controller.
We really focus a lot on what gamers are looking for. Precise controls, tactility, right sizing. What makes Ouya different and gives it the potential of changing the gaming environment is you're able to build things right from the start. You don't have to pay outrageous amounts of money for a dev kit. You don't have to have a lot of credentials, just good ideas.
The more we have something like this open console that can break that, it's going to open it up for a new business segment for the independent developers.
Since it's Android based, we have a great 3D port of Cannibal that's on Android already. That would be really fun to see up on the TV.
We have a prototype and it works. We'll have all the game genres you love. Shooters, platformers, sports, and RPGs. We'll have games from major game publishers and indies too. We'll have a full store of games, all free to play. Minecraft is going to be on it, and Twitch TV, so you can watch StarCraft and League of Legends.
This is the perfect hybrid to have something that's inexpensive, it's open, and it comes with a fantastic controller.
It's open for hackers that want to tweak the box and make it their own. This is a big undertaking. Effectively, we're trying to disrupt an established industry. It takes a lot of guts and courage. Well, I wasn't a female, I'd say big balls. We've raised money from friends and family, but it takes more. Kickstarter is a phenomenal place where early ideas can get supported by those people that are going to want to use it. And this product will not happen without their support. And when we raise this money, it means that we have arrived, that there is a need for an open game console, and that there is support from gamers and developers alike. And you're the signal to the world that this is wanted.
So Ouya did indeed reach their fundraising goal. So let's think about the video. Keep in mind they reached their goal. What was good about the video? What do you think made people donate? Right? And she talked about who was on her team and why those people were qualified, why there was a need for this product, right? What differentiated her product and the rest of her team from this. And there was a little bit of a personal connection there too, right? This is a person talking to you and is very slick and well made. That's a good thing to keep in mind when you look at what their original funding goal was. So they ended up with about $8.6 million. Originally, they set a goal of $950,000. That's still a lot of money, but they made a ton more than they expected to. And part of that is because of how slick and professional their video was. Now, I don't mean slick to have a negative connotation like a car salesman. Slick like it was incredibly well done and well thought out. When you're asking people to trust you with $950,000, you have to look like you're going to do something right with that money. You know how to handle that kind of money. Obviously, if you're trying to raise $500, you don't need to do something like that. But if you need a lot of money, you need to invest in your video. And you think a video like that could be used a lot of places. If you're taking private meetings with investors, that's a video you can use. It's a great video to put on YouTube and let people find you that way. So these are things to think about. They had 63,000 backers. That's a lot of people. And they did a couple of other things right here. Now this is just their little profile box. Now this is the first project that Julie Ehrman, who's on the video, created. But she backed 27 other projects on Kickstarter. Now Kickstarter is its own little community. So when you see that a project creator has backed other products, that means they're taking their personal money and investing back in the community. Those are words we throw around a lot just in society in general, investing in the community. It's important though. This shows that she cares about Kickstarter, she cares about the success of other entrepreneurs, and she's willing to put her money where her mouth is, basically. She's not looking to come to Kickstarter, get her $950,000 and run. She's joined this community. A couple other things that she did right. She connected her Facebook account to the Kickstarter campaign. And that means what? She's a real person. I see tons of Kickstarters where they have not connected. I understand you want to maintain your privacy, but you got to balance that out with, this is a real person with 316 friends, possibly some in common with you. You want to know who's getting your money. And her website, she's listed a Twitter account, which is another great way to keep people informed. Of course, if you've been on Kickstarter, you know that they provide a lot of tools for project creators to keep in touch with their backers. You can do project updates, you can send emails to everyone. But having external sources like a Twitter account is another great way to do that and possibly find more people. So how are they getting funding? How would you raise $8.6 million? We should all be so lucky, right? So first of all, use Twitter and Facebook to contact friends and family. Maybe it's enough to post on your status, hey, I'm doing a Kickstarter, here's the link. It's probably not. You want to reach out to people. You want to come up with specific pitches tailored to key people. If you have hundreds and hundreds of Facebook friends, you're probably not going to contact them all individually, but you want to think about who your project will resonate with. To give you an example, I have a friend that I only know from the internet, we've never met in person. She did a Kickstarter campaign to self-publish her book. We met because we were both active in writing communities on the internet. So she sent me a private message on Facebook that referenced things going on in my life, asked me about a specific magazine that she knows I read, if I had read this current article, and then said, hey, I know we're both writers, well, I'm doing this thing to take my writing to the next level, I'd love it if you could contribute. Guess what? What I did immediately after I finished reading is I clicked the Kickstarter link and pulled out my credit card. So really important to make that personal connection, and as much as possible, make it seem like you're not just flat out asking for money. No one likes that, right? Your parents don't like it when you're like, hey, Mom, I need more cash. You call and you go like, hey, how's it going? How's Dad? How's my little brother? By the way, right? Right? Okay. So, the other thing you can do with social media to help your Kickstarter campaign is get on Twitter and Facebook. You want to talk to reporters and bloggers in your niche. This is a little harder to do. They're not always going to be interested in what you say, and you're basically reaching out to people you don't know. But you can, over time, form relationships with these people, and maybe they'll never respond to you, but they might click your link anyway. You never know. So it's a good tool to have in your arsenal. Both Kickstarter and IndieGoGo have featured projects, which they select. So it's not something you can really control, although being featured on the front page is going to go a long way towards your fundraising goals. But having a well put together campaign is going to help you with that. They're not going to feature somebody who has 3 grainy iPhone photos as their campaign page. You can also, as I mentioned, create blogs and videos to promote your work. And this is so people that are outside the Kickstarter community and outside of your personal network, even outside those 3.5 million people, can find you. Maybe somebody's Googling snowboard wax, and they're going to find your video that you've put on YouTube and Vimeo, or they'll find your Tumblr blog that you made. These are all ways to find people and lead them back to your fundraising page. Now, as for the donors, what do they get in return, right? Nobody likes to give money and get nothing. It's not really a typical investment. You don't get any kind of stake in the company. You get some kind of perks that are created by the project owner. So, you want to think about what works for you, what fits with what you're doing, and you create bonuses for different levels of giving. So in the case of a smaller project, like if you're making a movie, you give out a DVD to people who donate $20 or more. I gave $15 for a magazine to be published, and I get a copy of the magazine. Promotional items, stickers, tote bags, t-shirts, I've seen them all. They're all over Kickstarter. It's a great way to spread your brand. You can also sell the product itself, by the way. Some people do use Kickstarter just for sales. Give, whatever the product price is, $150, and you'll get the product because we're using your money to make the first run. Public thanks, people will put up websites listing all their donors, so that's a good thing to do because you don't want people to feel like, oh, I can't give enough money to get a prize, I'm not going to donate. You want people to go, well, I have $2, at least I get my name out somewhere, right? Other services are good. The magazine I mentioned had a really funny one. One of the writers does a lot of work. She writes a lot about like dating and her love life. And so one of the prizes was if you gave $250, she would review your online dating profile. So, something that fits the project, right? I once got a handwritten thank you note, and that impressed me more than anything. Had my name, it wasn't terribly personal, but somebody took the time to sit down and go, "Dear Wendy, thank you so much for your $15 gift, blah, 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 blah." It was great. I loved it. I tweeted about it. The project creator retweeted it. Her friend retweeted it. It's a big deal to me. These are, it's an impressive thing. You don't get much handwritten stuff these days. Let's talk a little bit about the difference between IndieGoGo and Kickstarter. If you're going to go this route, I would suggest taking a good, thorough look at both sites. Look in the category that your product will fit in, and see what else is there. See where you think you belong. IndieGoGo does not have any kind of approval process for their projects. There's no gatekeeper. You might consider that a good thing. It might be a bad thing. One of the consequences of that is that IndieGoGo has a lot of the, so-and-so's husband just passed away, please donate to help keep the kids fed, kind of more charity projects. Like for instance, you remember a few months ago that the bus monitor in upstate New York who was bullied by kids on the bus, and there was that huge campaign to raise money for her to go on vacation. That was on IndieGoGo. There's no gatekeeper. Whether that affects the perception of your product is something you're going to have to decide for yourself. I personally find Kickstarter a little bit more professional when you look at the Kickstarter homepage versus the IndieGoGo page, but that's really a decision you have to make for your own project. IndieGoGo has an option where you can receive partial funding. Kickstarter, if you don't meet your goal, you don't get anything. And this is something, again, you have to consider. So let's say you need $5,000 to build your prototype, right? If you're on IndieGoGo and you raise $4,000, you can collect that $4,000. But is that enough? Do you need that extra $1,000? Can you kick it in yourself? Can you call up your dad? Can you cut back in other areas to make up the difference? A lot of people have found that not meeting their goal, it is not worth it, right? They can't proceed without that goal amount of money, so there's no point in getting a lesser amount. You're just going to maybe lead to disappointed customers too, who say, "Where's my rewards? Where's the actual finished product?" And you're thinking, "I'm working double shifts at Starbucks just to make up this extra $1,000 so I can build this thing." So again, something that's going to depend on your personal circumstances. If you have a preference, Kickstarter uses Amazon's payment system and IndieGoGo is on PayPal, so if you care about that. I read an article by Jim Kukral, who's this big internet marketing guru, and he cares very much about Amazon versus PayPal. A couple other things to keep in mind. Both sites will take a small percentage of the funds you raise. That's going to vary based on how much your fundraising goal is. IndieGoGo charges more if you want to take the partial payment option than if you're taking the full payment option. Like we just talked about, are you willing to come up with the rest of the funds if you don't meet your goal? What's going to happen to your project? What if you don't raise anything? I saw a project today that had gotten 0 donations for $0. What did this guy do? He wanted to make a music video for his song. Is he out there, hiring students to work for free? I don't know. What happens? And then, are you prepared to complete your project and fulfill all the perks you promised to your donors? That's a lot of work. There have been a lot of stories recently of people being overwhelmed with the success they have on Kickstarter. And so they plan to ship out their t-shirts in April, and now they can't do it till June, and their printer's overwhelmed. It's a good problem to have, but it's still a problem. So these are things you need to think about. What's your plan B? Who do you have on hand to help you? So, you've got your project, you've got your prototype, you are ready to sell. Are you going to open your own store? Probably not. Outgrow.me is a marketplace for your Kickstarter and IndieGoGo projects. You just go and buy stuff there. Obviously, there are traditional distribution channels as well. It doesn't all have to depend on sites like this. This guy, the creator of the Super Rope Cinch, found success. He did a huge series of press releases. He's pretty active on social media. He doesn't have a ton of followers. He has like 230 Facebook likes, 300 Twitter followers, so pretty small numbers. but he's very active and very engaged with his audience. He thanks people for following. He's always doing outreach to Boy Scouts, is what he perceives as his big audience. So Walmart picked up this product. They were really impressed with that kind of outreach and the investment he had put into making this project a success. So, something to think about. I think if your product's being picked up by Walmart, you're going to do pretty well for yourself. What if you have a company, a service, it's not a product? There is a site for that too. This is AngelList. It's angel.co. And AngelList exists to connect founders with investors, with talent. So you need people to work on your startup. And here I've just pictured some of their success stories. So they worked with Uber, who eventually received $32 million in Series B funding. Branch Out, $25 million. DuckDuckGo is doing Series A with Union Square Ventures, which you guys know is a big venture capitalist. So this is a good site to know about. It's a little bit more locked down than Kickstarter or IndieGoGo. A lot of the information is only available if you filled out a profile. I can't go in and see what companies they're featuring to invest in unless I fill out an investor profile. It probably won't surprise you to learn I'm not going to be investing in any of these companies anytime soon. So, but it's a good site. It's really well regarded. So something to keep in your arsenal. If you want to borrow money, there's also person-to-person lending, and this allows you to bypass banks and go borrow directly from another person. The advantage of this is that you're generally going to get a lower rate and more favorable terms. The disadvantage, at least as compared to crowdfunding, is you've got to pay this back. This is a loan. This is not free money the way Kickstarter is. Although I should mention, Kickstarter, when you sign the contract with them, you are legally obligated to use the funds to complete your project. And in fact, you'll probably face a major social media backlash if you don't. So, not to say that Kickstarter is just a slush fund, but these are more formal lending programs. The other downside to these, particularly Prosper.com, is not really optimized for business use. It's a lot of people who are like, oh, my car broke down, and I need an extra $200 to fix it until my next paycheck, which is great, that's honorable, that's fine. That's probably not the best place to get funding for a business, but resources to know about. All right, so you're all set, you got some money, you need people to help you build your prototypes, get your first run going. A few ways to find people. LinkedIn, which you guys are already all on, so that's a good place to start. Partner Up is very similar to LinkedIn, but it is more geared towards startups and entrepreneurs. So also a good place to establish a presence. And then AngelList, like I mentioned, also will let you hire people. You can find different kinds of talent there. A few things to keep in mind when you're hiring or just looking for people. These different sites have different capabilities. LinkedIn has a really good search that you can search by skill. It's linkedin.com/skills, and so you can say, like, I need a PHP developer, and you can search for that. I want somebody who worked at Facebook. You search for that and find those kinds of people. Partner Up does keyword and location, so it's a little more general, but again, that same breadth of information available to you. AngelList has a really interesting feature, which is that you can search by market. So if you are looking to expand to, say, the San Francisco Bay Area, you need a business development person out there to start, getting some accounts. You can search by somebody who is either located there or has experience working in that market. So that's a good way to filter to find exactly who you need. Also, if you're going to stay here or establish your business in New York, I cannot recommend this site highly enough to you. mappedinny.com. This is run by the City of New York. It is an interactive map that lists startups, co-working spaces, incubators, investors. Some of them have these little call-outs that say they're hiring. So this is a fantastic way to find what companies are out there, where are their investors. If you want to get hired on at a startup, you can see who's hiring at a glance. You can navigate the map, do it by location. It's fantastic, so definitely want to check it out. Another thing you want to think about for social media as you get your business up and running is customer service. And this is something that you need to build into your original model of the company. Whether you like it or not, Customers are going to talk about you on Facebook and Twitter and wherever else they're hanging out online. So you want to be there to be able to respond to inquiries, answer questions, shut down the complaints where you can. So 55% of customers who've complained about a company on social media expect a same-day response, and only about 30% get that response. That's a big gap there, and that's something that you want to pay attention to. It's not always possible to respond the same day, but you want to think about how you can be responsive. Uber, which is a car, it's basically like a private taxi service, and you just put your credit card on file with Uber. They charge your card, so you don't pay the driver. Does a really, really good job doing customer service on Twitter. So I want to call out a couple of examples. They're really accessible. So this guy, I don't know if you can read this. He says, changed my Uber phone number and now their system is not accepting change. Can't get a ride back. Sad face. So he seemed to maybe be kind of complaining generally. So within 2 hours, Uber has responded to him. Hey Joe, text go to this number and you should be good. Otherwise shoot a note to us at this email address and we'll fix it. So really responsive, and it's accessible. If Joe needed an instant answer, he probably could have picked up the phone and called Uber. So it's not clear that he needed an answer right away, but Uber was accessible anyway, and they solved his problem. Uber's very accountable on Twitter. Melissa, hoping Uber can go back on my fave apps list. Problem finding me, then emailing a warning for a cancellation fee. Please do better. And Uber says, hey Melissa, would you mind replying to the receipt or emailing us? I'd like to make this right. Thanks. So right away, they've proposed a solution. They're saying they empathize with her. This is important. They're accountable. You will all hear these stories of companies that go, like, whatever, we have your money, not our problem. You don't want to be that person, and you really don't want to be that person on Twitter where that can spread like wildfire. Also, Uber is just fun. They post a lot of stuff like this, of fun things to do in all the cities where they're located. And that's on brand for them, it's in their voice, and it kind of leads to more business for them. So they propose like, hey, San Francisco, you should go to this event. Well, people are going to need rides to and from that event, right? More business for Uber. So if you're going to do customer service on social media, take a look at Uber. They do a really fantastic job. Just another, this is a recent survey showing why social media matters in terms of dealing with customer service. So about 29% of people have received a complaint from a response from a business that they complained about on Twitter. Up here, we've got about 83% of people either liked or loved it when the company responded, and then about 75% were at least somewhat satisfied with the company's response. So that's really good. If you are responding to people on Twitter, chances are they're going to like it, they're going to be happy, they're going to come back to you. All right, a couple of closing things before we go to questions. Build your network before you need your network. If you look at these iPads here, when do you need insurance on your iPad? After it's broken, right? When should you have bought your insurance? Before it was broken. Same thing as a car accident, same thing as you get sick. It's a lot easier to have that insurance and your support system in place before you need it. So as future business owners, what you want to be doing right now is building your network every available opportunity. And I'm not saying, go to networking events every single night, but when you have an internship, add all those people you meet on LinkedIn. Connect with your classmates on Facebook or LinkedIn. You want to keep up with these people, you want to grow your network so that in 5 years, when you're saying, hey, I have, or in a few months when you're ready to launch, you've already got these people in place to be a test market, or to bounce questions off of, or to be your customers. Also, once you have a company name, buy the domain name, reserve your social media handles. Even if you think you are months away from needing them, you should get them. I don't need to tell you how hard it is to get certain domain names these days. Twitter handles are becoming incredibly difficult to come by, and Twitter is incredibly bad right now about releasing unused handles. I've been trying to get my full name on Twitter for about 5 years now. So, my mistake not reserving it right away, but you want to make sure you grab those, tweet enough to stay active. Facebook, you can't get the username until you have, I think it's 25 fans. So you might be able to cajole a few friends into liking your page so you can grab the username, but if not, just keep that in mind. keep that all up to date. All right, questions?